New music. Oh, you're not showing up. Where did you go? Where are you?
There's a sparkle in your eyes. I feel the warmth of your skin. Just the touch of your hand makes me tremble within. Love the smell of your hair. Lying here in my bed. Never gonna be alone. 'Cause with you, I'm finally coming home. I wanna be with you always. 'Cause that is what my heart says. That's what my heart says. I wanna be with you always. You are my world in every place. It's the things that you do, and it's the smile on your face. And as time goes by, I know I'm in a better place. I'm in a better place. Without your love, I am out of place. And without you, I am just a trace. I love you with all of my heart. Together forever, never to part. I want
Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from or whenever. This is Crypto Talk with Brianna and Scott, and I'm Scott. Hi, Brianna. How are you doing today?
Hey Scott, I'm Brianna, everybody. I'm doing really well. The sun is shining outside,
I'm
blue
jealous.
skies, and the snow is melting. I'm kind of missing the snow, not gonna lie.
Really?
But no, other than that, I'm doing good. How are you, Scott? How was your week?
Pretty good. Pretty good. A lot of a little up and down, but getting over COVID. Actually, everybody we finally tested negative. I mean, it took me, gosh, I think it took me 17 days, or I'd had symptoms for 17 days, and I like on day 14, I started testing, and I was still positive. I'm like, but now it's gone. Everybody in my family's gone over it, and yay, glad to be done. Although I still have this little head cold that's lingering, but I can deal with that. But I'm jealous about the sun because it's cloudy here today. We did, and so you kind of know my story. It's like I'm kind of new to living in the Northwest here in the winter. I grew up in this, but I've been away for many, many years. So I need some more sun. I need some more sun. So we got like one day, I think this week, and it was glorious. But now I'm back to the gloom and doom. So I don't know. How do you do it? How do you get through these winters?
Yeah, I found this tiny little glimmer of sunlight earlier, and I just, it was through the window, and I just sat in it and closed my eyes and
Yeah.
absorbed it. I don't know, this is a great year really to be out and like snowshoeing and like doing all the outdoor stuff, which I usually love. I haven't been doing this year, but
Uh-uh.
that's how I get through it. Just stay active. But I haven't done that this year.
Okay. So speaking of snowshoeing, I don't think I've ever snowshoed before, which is kind of interesting. But this year I was in Costco actually before Christmas, and I came across this snowshoe set. I'm like, I gotta have that. I want to try that. So I haven't broken it out yet. So have you snowshoed? Like, what's the trick to snowshoeing?
I have. I haven't done it much. It's a little bit cumbersome.
Yeah.
There's kind of a lot going on. I almost prefer just kind of walking with like good boots on,
Okay.
but it depends on if you're in really deep snow, then it just keeps you afloat.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it does kind of help with if you're in super deep snow, you're not exerting as much energy because you're not sinking in.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, no, it's great. It allows you to be able to go out to, high mountains and really get to be out in the thick of it. So it's fun. It's fun, but it's a little bit cumbersome because it's like you got a lot going on. So once you get the flow of that, because you got your
Yeah.
poles, you got your big. It's almost like walking in flippers, like in
Oh, flippers, yeah.
in the
Well,
sunshine. Not as
so
bad
I
as
used to
like
snow
that.
ski a lot. Like walking in, ski boots is kind of cumbersome, and I've cross country skied before, and that to me would seem harder. It would seem easier to snowshoe. I don't know. Have you cross country skied?
I have not. I would love to, but no,
Oh,
I haven't.
yeah. That's, because you're moving and the skis are really narrow. So, anyways, I'll report back how it goes. They actually have this snowshoeing clinic I saw here, like once a week you can go I'm thinking, okay, do I need to like learn? Do I need a clinic to learn to snowshoe? But maybe I do. We'll see. All right. Well, anyway, well, that's fun. All right, cool. Well, should we talk about some crypto?
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh,
I
cool
will
here. We got a friend
go.
here on here. Mohammed Arf says hello to you. Hey, if you're on here and you're listening, go ahead and put a chat in. I'm not sure if we can see all Facebook posts, but I'm pretty sure from YouTube we can. And also, yeah, even if you're watching on a replay, just say hi to us and let us know what you want to talk about. Because well, we're going to talk about crypto, of course, but you can see we can talk about snowshoeing and whatever, really.
Okay, well, I went ahead. I have shared my screen, so that's probably ready when you are.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
just going to give a little bit of a warning. I can't see very well today.
Oh, yeah.
As Scott, we were talking about this before. Scott's getting over COVID. I had COVID about 6 weeks ago, and ever since then I have this eye thing going on. So I have like an ointment in my eyes, basically like reading through Vaseline. So if I'm giving weird looks or getting really close to the
Oh,
screen, then
gosh.
I'm just trying to
Okay.
read. Okay.
All right. Well, you can just
Okay.
make stuff up. Make stuff up if you want.
I'll
Go
just
ahead.
make it all up. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so we had a birthday over this last week, and that birthday
Oh.
was Bitcoin. And
Yay.
Bitcoin turned 14 on January 3rd. There she
Wow.
is, big
Hello.
14-year-old
Oh,
Morky,
Mrs.
Vicky. She's
Bitcoin.
looking beautiful.
Yep, looking beautiful.
And this article, this was Investopedia. And so it just touches on some of the beginnings and kind of the progression of Bitcoin. So I want to just go over this. I found it to be pretty interesting. So as I pointed out, it said Bitcoin fans celebrated the top cryptocurrency's 14th year on January 3rd. Now, I didn't know it was its birthday beforehand. Did you know, Scott?
That January 3rd, yes, actually, because I'm creating videos and I was creating a very introductory video and I called out January 3rd, 2009. Yeah. So,
Well,
but yeah, I'm cool. I'm glad we're celebrating because I love me some Bitcoin. Happy birthday,
yes.
Bitcoin.
Happy birthday, Bitcoin. So the first Bitcoin was mined on January 3rd, 2009. The asset and its blockchain technology have had a profound impact on the world and survived multiple challenges, to say the least. Adoption of Bitcoin continues to increase with more companies and countries buying into the asset, and the crypto community has celebrated the occasion, predicting many more years of growth for Bitcoin. So, kind of going over the beginning, a humble start. Satoshi Nakamoto, the famed and mysterious Bitcoin creator, mined the first block on January 3rd, 2009. Nakamoto received 50 Bitcoin as a reward for the Genesis block, a holding that would be a massive sum by today's standard for the token's value. His reward can't be spent because Satoshi didn't send the transaction from the Genesis block to the global transaction database. And I wasn't aware of that. That was an interesting fact.
That's interesting that I heard that he didn't get anything from the value of it, and I was thinking, how did that happen? But I guess that's it. He didn't send it to the transaction database. Yeah.
And apparently, and it's unclear as to whether or not that was intentional.
Huh.
And yeah, I guess maybe we'll learn that someday, but
Yeah.
remains a mystery. And then we go on to surviving many challenges. So predictably, a novel asset such as Bitcoin would at some point encounter resistance and obstacles, and it did. On several occasions, especially during its early years, Bitcoin's price tumbled in some particularly notable incidents, but its highs continue to outshine the lows. The theme of the cryptocurrency's ability to recover strongly after bear markets began to cement themselves during those early years. I love the sounds of that because I personally am getting through all of the, I was experiencing some FUD. I didn't know that I was, and now I'm seeing in hindsight that I was over the last couple of months.
Wow.
And I'm working through that. And when I read stuff like this, it just solidifies that we are just going through that bear market, and it can be a little daunting. So,
Yeah.
okay, so very first Bitcoin transaction took place October 2009 when a Finnish computer science student named Marty Mäemi sold 5,050 Bitcoin, giving each coin a valuation of 0.0009.
Cool.
One of the most notable early real-world transactions occurred in 2010 when the now famous Laszlo Hanitz purchased 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. At today's value, that would work out to be about $167.3 million.
Good pizza.
That purchase has become a crypto community event, as marked on May 22nd as Bitcoin Pizza Day.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't long before Bitcoin reached a $1 valuation, which happened in February of 2011. Shortly afterward, the asset's price climbed to $10 and then to $30, leading to a leap of 30 times for that year. Wow, that's huge. In 2013, it crossed 1,000 per token. Of course, Bitcoin's 1,000 mark pales compared with its more recent valuation levels. The all-time high of just under 69,000 was reached in 2021. While it may be much lower than that now, many investors are optimistic, especially given the continued broadening of adoption. Then we go into the rapid explosion in adoption and awareness, which is happening now. One of the reasons there is growing optimism about Bitcoin is the fact that adoption and awareness don't seem to be stagnating, even as the asset price drop does. From the launch of the world's first Bitcoin ATM in 2013, the fact that Bitcoin symbol was encoded in Unicode, an international encoding standard that assigned unique symbols for use in different languages across various platforms and programs, the cryptocurrency has found a place in the public consciousness. Then came the initially slow but now rapid parade of companies investing in or accepting Bitcoin for payment, and that list includes Tesla, Block, and MicroStrategy. These companies have played a big part in boosting awareness of Bitcoin and persuading those on the fence about Bitcoin to try it. Bitcoin has also made advances on governmental levels. So we know, as we talk about quite a bit, that El Salvador famously made Bitcoin legal tender and continues to be on the asset, to bet on the asset. And more recently, the Central African Republic also named Bitcoin as legal tender, much to the surprise of some of the world's authorities. And then it just kind of went on in this article to just say that people are celebrating. And then one of the latest things that it pointed out that I wasn't aware of is that on the latest birthday, so this year's birthday, one of Ukraine's largest pharmacy chains, ANC, announced that it now will accept Bitcoin as a payment method. So as we see, one more statement. Bitcoin's short life has been eventful. The cryptocurrency is likely to encounter many more years of growth, and steadily expanding adoption will do much to encourage that. Bitcoin's 14th birthday is just another milestone in what could play out as a long life for the groundbreaking financial asset. So super exciting as we see just more adoption all over the world.
Yeah, no, that's fun. That's interesting because I've been creating videos, some basic videos, and doing going back and doing some research on just some of the basics of Bitcoin, and I just am finding it more and more. So last week I think we joked around I'm in love with DeFi, but I'm also in love with Bitcoin. It to me, I think I even said this on last week's show. It's like a miracle. It's miraculous. It's that once in a lifetime creation development that only comes around every once in a while. And I don't think we've begun to even scratch the surface on really the implications of what Bitcoin and the creation of it and Satoshi Nakamoto creating it is going to become. And some would argue that it's really blockchain. It's about blockchain, which I could make an argument for that too, because blockchain really is the underlying technology. The thing is, it had been around for a long time before Bitcoin. It took Satoshi Nakamoto to take blockchain and some computer science and cryptography and put it all together to make this use case from this blockchain that's been around, the technology has been around. So that to me is fascinating. And so it was just this perfect combination. And if you think about it, I'm wondering what he or she or whoever thought when they put it out there, like, oh, is this just going to be like anything else? Just a theoretical paper? Is it just going to live, amongst cryptography geeks or whatever, right? And if they could imagine what it turned into and then what it blossomed from there, which is almost the next amazing thing, I think, is that, yeah, we had Bitcoin. And if it had just stopped there and we would just have this either store of value like gold or digital gold or a currency that, shot up and became useful or even stayed where it is, that would be amazing. But what it spurred on, to me, is the most fascinating thing, the whole crypto industry and everything that's come from that, which, DeFi, which I think is amazing, has come from that. Everything has come from that, and it's opened up this whole new world of technology. And today, I don't know if you saw today, our mentor Brian Rose had a call about his investment club, and but he was talking about AI, and that's the next big investment is AI, and the combination between AI and blockchain is going to be amazing. And it's growing so fast. And there's I don't have the chart here I could show, but it's so interesting about how the technologies, how fast they grew over time. And like Facebook, to get to 1 million users took, 6 or 7 months. What was it? The internet took like 2 or 3 years. And, they have the cell phone. And then you had Spotify. What was the other ones? But it comes down to this Chat GPT, which is this new AI, chat technology. I think to get to 1 million users, it took 2 days. And you're just seeing, when you looked at it as a chart, like how fast this new technology is growing. And so when you look at Bitcoin and the crypto industry, so Bitcoin, yeah, it's 14 years, which is still a blip, in terms of length of how technology, how long technology takes to be adopted, especially compared to the internet, which took, a lot longer to finally, get into the mainstream. And then you had crypto on top of it that just got faster and faster, and DeFi's only been around for 3 or 4 years, and it's come a long way. But even in all of this, it's still in this infancy. And the other chart I like to see is that adoption curve, right? And you see that big bell curve when you get to the top of it, where you've got, adoption from most people. And we're still at the very beginning of that curve, right? So we're just moving out of really that early adopter, the total geeks that are just playing around with geek internet money, they're calling it, to now where it's starting to become a real thing, but it's still volatile and it's still new and it's crazy and it still scares a lot of people. And when you've got the stuff that happened in 2002, it scares a lot of the Main Street people. But as we can see, the people that know about crypto and are into crypto and believe in crypto are they're not budging. And the article that I'm going to show talks a little bit about that, on how during all this turmoil in 2022, with all the crashing of the different CeFi crypto businesses and FTX, that Bitcoin has been chugging along, and Ethereum for the most part, and they didn't crash down to zero. And if you look at the underlying technology, it's so solid. And so I think I've mentioned this before. That's what my hope is, that we really start to separate some of the wheat from the chaff, right? Separate the good from the bad here this year. And I think a lot of people are really going to look at Bitcoin and say, wow, yeah, it's that technology is amazing. If that's so good, maybe I should look into what else is available.
Right, that was well said. And I just want to add to that. I love Bitcoin as well. And I invested in it very briefly back in 2015. and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. And I really still didn't understand it when I reinvested back in 2021. And it took until the beginning of 2022 where I had my aha moment where I was listening to Andreas Antonopoulos
Hmm.
and when I read the Bitcoin white paper. So
Yeah.
if you haven't yet, if you're listening to this and you haven't yet, it's a really quick, pretty easy read, actually. I think it's what, 8 pages long, I want to say, the
Yeah.
Bitcoin white paper. And I recommend that everybody reads that because it's not that difficult to grasp. I thought it would be a lot more technical. I mean,
Yeah.
it's still a little bit, but it's easy to grasp and it gives you somewhat of an understanding of what it all is. And yeah, so I guess I'm just kind of saying that we still, yeah, I agree, we're totally at the early stages of this. But I really find it important to understand what it is and its use case, I guess.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't yet, now's a good time to go read that. You can find it
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
let's see what you have, Scott. Let's see
All right.
your article.
So this is actually it's actually notes that I took from an interview with Cathy Wood, who is one of the bigger time investors right now. And she is a big proponent of Bitcoin. And let's see. So here's a little bit of background on her. She's the CEO of ARK Invest. It's an investment company. They do a lot of ETFs, and she had kind of started her success with investing in a lot of technology stocks, and it has done really well. So she's got this 60 billion assets in this ARK investment. She's got what else? This $23 billion asset innovation fund, which has a lot. She's a big fan of Tesla. She's a big fan of automated driving cars, whatever you call those. And she's also a big believer in blockchain and Bitcoin. So she was on Bloomberg, and this was an interview on like a Bloomberg interview. And, I just find it so interesting. And this was typical of a lot of basic traditional financial mainstream media businesses. And now they're interviewing a lot more crypto investors and successful people in crypto. But it's funny because it seems like most of the interviews that I see, they're always trying to pick at these successful investors that have invested both in traditional finance and are now investing in crypto. And they're always trying to pick at them. Like this first question is like, Bitcoin, why should anyone invest in crypto and Bitcoin when the price has gone so far down? I mean, that's the first thing they lead off with, and they focus in on that. And so she says, if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, you'll find that the technology, the infrastructure has not skipped a beat throughout the entire 2022 crisis. And then she goes on to say, yeah, the hash rate for Bitcoin is at an all-time high, and that in Ethereum, the total staked value is 24 billion, which I thought, ooh, that's a lot. I didn't realize that 24 billion has been staked in the Ethereum blockchain. And just
Wow.
FYI for any newbies here, staking means that it's one of the cool things about crypto and about the consensus mechanism is that in proof of stake, which is the way that the network is validated and kept safe, is that if you invest 32 ETH or whatever into the network, and you can buy a computer and software and have the Ethereum validation software on a computer, you could become a validator, and you can then be part of how the network is secured and kept safe and validates blocks that move through the network. And so it's kind of a cool thing. And by doing that, you earn interest rate. And so now Ethereum is becoming a major, what do they call it? It's basically an asset that you can earn interest on by just staking or putting your assets and letting them sit there like a savings account for the most part. And so there are other ways. You don't have to necessarily have 32 ETH and become a validator to take advantage of this. There are liquid staking options where you can basically just put in $100 or whatever, and you invest that, and it earns 4%. And that, what they do is they aggregate those funds, and then they pool them into a validator. And so there is a validator then that is using your funds to help secure the network. So it's just an amazing thing. And so there's $24 billion that are staking this Ethereum network, that are there helping to secure and run the network. So it's not going anywhere. It's very secure. There's obviously a lot of people that are interested in this. So, these are the kind of things that, that I think are interesting. It's that everybody in crypto now, if you believe in crypto, you should have some of this stuff in your back pocket, because when you walk around and talk to people that don't understand it and that are just watching the mainstream media that are bad mouthing it, then you can pull some of this stuff out and say, what are you talking about? Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing great. And they really are. And so this is the kind of stuff that she, as a very successful investor in all technology, was basically saying back to Bloomberg. And so they say again, why are you investing in Coinbase? She's also a big investor in the stock of Coinbase. And one of the things they were questioning is that, well, after FTX went down, why isn't Coinbase shares going up? And her response is, look, it's just a lot more fear. People saying that, we don't know what we don't know. And I think that's a good quote, is that, right? And this is about a month ago. So this was right after the FTX crash. And so there was a lot of unknowns of what was going to happen. And is the contagion going to spread? And, there was a lot of talk about crypto going down, like completely, the whole ecosystem. And she goes on to say that, Coinbase is an onshore regulated company, and it wants to help shape regulation. Brian Armstrong, the CEO, he's leaning into what's going on right now, and he's saying, hey, the crypto space needs more clarity for regulators to protect investors. And he agrees. I agree. I think Cathy agrees. People want to invest in different types of crypto, but they were forced offshore because there wasn't anything available. Not anything, but there was limited options available for them here. And so they had to go offshore, and then that was completely unregulated. And we know what happened, to FTX. And she went on to say, some people are even saying that this could be another Lehman Brothers collapse that could start to take down the whole industry. And she's like, look, the entire ecosystem of crypto is 880 billion. So these are some, I liked this, and it's what caught my attention, was that she had these really cool numbers that all of us can kind of have in our back pocket, that are just kind of good to know. It's like $880 billion is in the crypto ecosystem. Apple by itself is 3 times bigger than the market cap of all of crypto, which I thought was interesting. And she's like, we need to keep things in perspective. Of course, crypto is just a blip compared to the global banking system with trillions and trillions of market cap. She said that FTX has about $5 to $10 billion of creditors that will be making claims against them. And Lehman Brothers at the time was 1.2 trillion in claims, when it went down in, 2008 and 9. So it's just a blip. And even Bernie Madoff's fraud was 64 billion. And so FTX being somewhere between 5 and 10 billion. So the mainstream media is painting this FTX thing like it's the biggest thing, gonna potentially topple the whole financial world. And she's like, come on, let's get real, which I like that. It's like, come on, people, get real. She says crypto assets attract a lot of attention. People talk about the 3 revolutions. Now, that's interesting. She didn't really go on to explain this very well, but her first one is, she called it a new monetary system, the first global, private, non-government controlled, digital, rules-based monetary system, and that being Bitcoin. I thought that was kind of interesting. That seems like a little bit of an overstatement. I think, again, it is sort of the vision that Satoshi Nakamoto and pure Bitcoin maximalists would maybe think. That is a potential vision. I'm not sure we'll ever get there exactly, but that is sort of the vision. So I thought it was interesting that this very well-respected tech investor really has this basic ideological Bitcoin is going to create the next monetary system kind of view. Now, I may be reading more into that, but it's interesting. Those were her words.
That is interesting. Just interject for just a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I just read something that was talking about Bitcoin being right in the middle right now where it stands of a new monetary system and a store of value. And it's just kind of like right between the two.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of agree with that. I think in the past it may have seemed like it would come up to be a new monetary system, whether or not it will be way down the line when it's not so
Right.
volatile. But I would lean more to the store of value side.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's just my thoughts for the current moment. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
and that's sort of interesting because I sort of had the impression that most people in crypto understand that the value right now is a store of value for Bitcoin, and yet maybe she's still thinking that it could replace the monetary system. I don't know if I think that anymore, to tell you the truth, but something in this vein will, and it may not be Bitcoin, but it may be something new. I mean, who knows what's going to get innovated and created? Hopefully, it's not the governmental CBDCs, but
Right.
something more open sourced, if you will. So she also went on to talk about DeFi. She didn't say too much about it, just that it's a very big idea, and where you can cut out the middleman in the financial transactions and have much less counterparty risk. And she believes that it will continue to take off and move forward, which is good news. The next question basically was, yeah, how long will the industry be reeling from the FTX fall? Is there more contagion? She says, basically, you're looking for the whales in these situations, and she thinks that FTX was a whale, and that that there won't be anybody bigger or bigger whales that will fall. That was her opinion. But recently, we started to hear some news about Genesis, and which is big because it's the biggest, I believe. I don't know what it's an investment, it's a brokerage, it's a lot of things in crypto. It owns or runs and controls the grayscale Bitcoin futures contract, I guess, which is a big deal. A lot of people have a lot of money invested in that. They were part of, I think Genesis is part of that group that from there they might go under too. And I don't think it will cause any more damage. It won't be good, but it's another pretty big one. If not I don't think it's as big as FTX, but it's big, and that may happen. But I think most people have sort of, what they say, priced that in, or realize that may happen, and I don't think that there's any more like real. If this were to happen, that it would do any more damage. I think most people are over it now. They get it. We're moving forward. What else? She talked about. She just talks about things like the new SEC commissioner has said that we need more regulation on decentralization and transparency, which she thought was really cool because that's really what Bitcoin for her is. It's just this pure good decentralization and transparency, and because investors don't have have a liquid and easy method to invest in Bitcoin like an ETF. So she's really big on trying to get a Bitcoin ETF created, so that basically it's easy. The ETF fund actually invests in Bitcoin. It's a one-to-one connection. So as Bitcoin goes up and down, the ETF goes up and down. And right now, the SEC isn't allowing that. And she's just saying that a lot of investors don't want to have to go to an exchange and buy their Bitcoin in the crypto world, if you will. That a lot of them want to use the existing financial system, but they do want exposure to this awesome asset of Bitcoin, and an ETF would do that. So she thinks that that'll happen soon, probably this year, maybe 2 years from now. I think it'll happen this year. I think there's just a lot of pressure on it, and people are seeing that Bitcoin. There's nothing to fear from Bitcoin, so why wouldn't they do it? I don't know. So I think that's good news. What else? She thinks that more people are building on Bitcoin because it's been so safe, and she thinks, and I think that 2023 will be the year where we'll see some significant new dApps and protocols that run on top of Bitcoin, like Ethereum. And this is just my opinion, I think it's going to be interesting because if Bitcoin now becomes like Ethereum, where you can build dApps that run really smoothly and provide really good services, that because Bitcoin is so stable and has never been hacked and just runs really well, that it could switch that whole Ethereum dominant player when it comes to DeFi and smart contracts. It could flip that on its head. I don't know. That's kind of one of my outlier predictions, is that Bitcoin becomes a network to build on top of, not just a store of value and not a currency into itself, but like in Ethereum, a place to build on. Wouldn't that be interesting? I don't know.
Yeah, that is interesting. I read where Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy is building, or they are investing and building on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. And I think it might be kind of the leading, when we go through the bull runs, it's kind of like things get super exciting and there's just stuff being created all over the place. So that might be what we see in the next bull run. It's going to be interesting and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be a whole new ball game, because right now, or most of this year, I was a big Ethereum bull because of all of the DeFi and the dApps and that you can build on top of Ethereum. And I've started to lose, I don't know, faith or a little bit interest, especially after the Ethereum merge, that any of the other layer ones were going to overtake Ethereum. And I think what we've also seen, which is interesting, is that these layer twos are really becoming the stars, like Optimism and Arbitrum, that are allowing any of the slowness and the high cost of Ethereum for transactions to be mitigated. And so this is all on top of Ethereum. So this ecosystem of Ethereum is the layer one, and these layer twos that provide these awesome services. And then dApps will sit on top of the layer twos. I don't know. That's looking pretty good. But then if you can do the same thing on Bitcoin, then I don't know. That's just going to be really interesting to see what happens. And I just think that that's opportunity for more opportunities,
Right.
more places for cool applications to be built. And since I'm not really that big on trying to figure out what the next big coin is going to do and make my money there, I'm more interested in what can this technology do to create applications that benefit me as a consumer or benefit me as an investor, not necessarily in the underlying coin, but in the technology that moves forward. And if you think about it, if regulation comes in and pretty much everything besides Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, but maybe not, is a security, then what we're doing is we're just investing in these technologies, these other blockchains and protocols, just like we would in any stock in a business. I, for one, don't have a problem with that. The only downside I see to that from a consumer side or an investor is that it will slow innovation down a little bit, because it's going to be a lot harder to actually have a project actually get out there and run. But on the other hand, I'll probably feel more confident that the ones that are out there aren't going to get hacked as easily or be fruitless. So I mean, there's a lot of catch-22 and a lot of give and take, I think. And I've really come, not full circle, but a lot more open to regulation. And I think part of it is just because we saw how many people got burned. So we need regulation about that, certainly, like protect consumers from what happened from an FTX perspective. I don't think that they'll, and hopefully they won't, go into this whole next level and regulate everything as a security or not. I think that's going to take them a little more time to figure out. And it could be, just depending on how they do it. The thing that we don't want to see is have them just clamp down and regulate everything and just almost shut down, the whole crypto space and what it offers people. I don't think that's going to happen, but
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You touched on a couple points there. I just want to follow up
sure.
really quick. So, this last bull run was mostly kind of the layer ones, all up in the top 10 was kind of those layer ones competing. Is anything going to reach close to Ethereum? And
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I don't think that anything is. I think this kind of showed, I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but this kind of showed that Ethereum's likely going to be in the front runner for that. And so I kind of wonder, with the next bull run, will we see those layer twos? Is it going to be more of those ones in the top 10 that are being invested in as this all evolves?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And the other thing is, as DeFi takes off, will the the native token of the DeFi protocol, or the DEX, or the decentralized exchange, will those take off? Because, and I have no problem. There's nothing wrong with having the native tokens and investing them and hoping that their value goes up. And in fact, I'll participate in some of that, but not when I first came into crypto. And a lot of people they're just using every token, every coin is just a speculative investment. I'm just going to, like a stock, I'm hoping it goes up. And there's so much more to crypto than that. But there's nothing wrong with it. And, it's like, because I'm becoming a big fan of Optimism and Arbitrum and all of these layer twos, that because as I do a lot of transactions in DeFi, I'm saving a lot of money and a lot of time and speed when I'm using these layer twos. And when I have to use a DeFi protocol now that is strictly on Ethereum, I'm not as interested in using it. So it's interesting to see how this even might drive that even further. And so, I'm a big fan of these layer twos for sure. And in Bitcoin, Lightning Network, which is on the Bitcoin network, is like a layer two on top of Bitcoin too. And there's a lot of news coming out that's going to start really popping, and some interesting things are going to happen. And, it might take Lightning Network to make Bitcoin a transaction or a currency that now will be available to buy a lot more things, because it's going to make it a lot simpler. And I think what's so interesting about it, well, I'll just leave it at that. But there are some technologies that use the Bitcoin blockchain as the underlying technology. There's a payment system and a payment rail that sits on top of Bitcoin, uses Lightning, and you can do payments to merchants, but they don't, and it goes through the Bitcoin network, but they never know. No one ever knows that you're actually using Bitcoin. And so I don't know how fast that's going to come out, and I can't remember the name of the technology that's being used. Do you remember that? We talked about it before. Yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but it's a whole payment system. That would be so interesting in the end, that if that became, it's like a PayPal in a way. It's like you're just using your card to swipe this, but it's using the Bitcoin network. And you don't even know that you're on Bitcoin. So that would be interesting. The last point that she points out here is she just, again, talking about inflation. She had an interesting take on this. She's like, in the late 19-teens, she's like, we were in the midst of the biggest innovative stretch in history, where the telephone, electricity, and automobiles were all burgeoning. And she said, but at the same time, right after that came World War II and the Spanish flu. And she's like, sound familiar? Ukraine war, pandemic. But then she said there was all sorts of massive supply chain problems back then, and inflation had peaked at 24% in June of 1920. And then by the end, we've got in 1921, they had pushed inflation all the way back to minus 15, although I'm not sure how that works, minus 15 inflation. But her point was this can move fast, and it will move fast, that she thinks inflation is going to go down really fast next year. That was just her point, which I thought was cool. So we're doing good on time. We got 15 more minutes there. Hi, Brandy. How you doing? Brandy's waving. Friend of mine who is a big time crypto influencer in the NFT space and just all sorts of different areas in crypto. So let's go ahead. Let me turn it back to you. And if you got another article, we got 15 minutes still.
Yeah, I have just a really quick one that I will touch on here.
Okay.
Oops. Computer's going slow today. Sorry, just give me 1 second.
I will, Brandy. We'll keep up the good work. You too. Brandy's travels all over the world as a crypto enthusiast, and NFT and metaverse enthusiast.
Nice.
Brandy, what is your company's name again? You're the chief marketing officer of an Indian blockchain guild, right? Is it a Visa? I want to get that right. But yeah, she She travels around the world, and I like to follow her on Instagram. Like, where in the world is Brandy?
Love it. Love it. Okay, so I'll touch on this really quick. This is LG Electronics' latest partnership seeks to bring in interoperable metaverse platforms to TVs.
Oh my God! I saw this yesterday, and I'm like, I'm buying one of those. I was like, I'm looking to buy a TV, and I'm like, I'm buying me an LG. This is so funny that you picked this up. Okay, good. Let's go for
I know,
it.
it is funny. And I just bought a TV like last year, so I'm like,
I know. I'm going to the metaverse with my TV.
I won't be going to the metaverse in my living room, I guess. But and I'm
Yeah.
trying to picture what this means. I wish it would go into more detail of what, like, I can't picture what this means. But okay, so South Korean tech giant LG Electronics announced that it has teamed up with cloud-based technology platform Orbit and Pixelinks, a
Pixels.
company building an integrated music, gaming, and Web3 ecosystem to bring the metaverse directly into the living rooms of viewers. I really love the idea of the music part.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Kind of just attending these festivals, I guess, from my living room. That sounds fun. The collaboration is set to allow viewers to explore interconnected virtual worlds, concerts, and AI multiplayer games through their LG TVs, making it easier for consumers to interact in the metaverse. On a January 4th press release sent to Cointelegraph, said that users will be able to access super high fidelity interconnected virtual worlds and experiences, including virtual concerts and AI generative multiplayer games.
Cool.
The co-founder and chief technologist, Puya Kusha, our proprietary technology is a connective tissue that links virtual worlds together and makes it easy for developers and brands to bring these experiences into the metaverse. Scaling our technology for millions of LG TV customers is the next step in making the metaverse accessible for all. And then we have a name here, Animoca Brands. We know Yatsu,
Yeah.
and very interesting. So it's pointed out here that the digital entertainment, blockchain, and gamification company, that's Animoca Brands, has secured a major stake in the Los Angeles-based Pixelinks. So if you are interested in learning more, if you're anything like me, I get a little bit, I get a little bit like daunted when I hear metaverse and when I hear AI, because it makes me just a little bit nervous about what could happen with this. But I think there's a lot of greatness within it too. And one thing that really opened up my mind to it and to see this through a positive light, the positive part that can come out of this was listening to Yatsu. And our mentor, Brian Rose, has a couple of really interesting interviews with Yatsu on the London Rail platform. So if you want to hear more about that, I recommend those. There's 2 interviews that you can find on there. They're super interesting, and they paint a pretty light picture when it comes to this versus some of the more darker stuff that can come up in headlines about AI and about metaverse. That's really, to be honest, scares me. But there's some really cool stuff I think that's going to come along with this. So yeah, that's my take on this. Anything to add? Scott?
Yeah, that's fun. It's too funny. Yeah, I literally was looking at TVs the other day, and I saw that article, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I'm going to look into getting an LG TV to see if that's what that's all about. It's really cool. So it's interesting you say that the metaverse that you're sometimes scared of the metaverse, or is that how much? First of all, without necessarily going into all the gory detail, maybe what is it generally that you're sort of wondering or afraid about the metaverse?
I think my fears are just the way, when I hear that people are going to, like how they sit on smartphones, that they'll be operating too much in a digital reality and lose grip of reality.
Okay.
And so there's that. And then, I mean, just as with anything, as with any technology, as with anything, it can be used for whatever reasons. Whether there's always going to be malicious things happening in any system, right?
Yeah.
So I guess to what extent, that part scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's always both sides of that spectrum. That's always going to be in
Yeah.
anything. It's on the internet.
Yeah.
It's in real life. But I guess just looking forward to the future and hoping that there's still reality existing, that that people are grounded, and not just too submerged and kind of losing their grip on reality in the
Well,
metaverse.
okay. Well, this is an opportunity for you then to be, a spokesman for, the good of the metaverse. Because to be honest, my feeling is, hey, man, it's going to be bad. It's going to be a lot of bad shit out there on the metaverse. I mean, let's look at the internet and whatever. And it's just there. But it's no different than anything else, no different than the internet. And like you said, you had that right perspective, I think. But it also, I think, takes just like we try to do here, we try to focus on the positive sides of crypto and blockchain technology. But we do talk about the negative stuff because it's out there, and I mean, it will be there. But so I sort of have that as a given. There will be that kind of stuff, but I really focus on the good stuff. And I'm really excited about the metaverse. And so I've mentioned before that I've got some land, and I'm testing, I'm building, I'm seeing what the average person can do without, being a coder, what we can do. And there's a lot we can do to build our own metaverses, to participate in the metaverse. The interesting thing is that right now so there's interesting perspectives on it. There's the futuristic, big time, like we're all living in the metaverse. We all got our glasses on, and we just, we're all living there in this complete new reality that looks and feels like the real world, or a real world, maybe like the Matrix, right? And I think that's a long, long way off. There is a book that I'm reading. It's called The Metaverse and How It Will Revolutionize Everything by Matthew Ball. It's a very interesting book. It's very detailed. And it goes into a lot of the minutia of what it will take to actually create this real virtual reality kind of internet. And we're a long way off just from computing power alone. And which I thought, oh wow, we've got enough computing power to do anything. And what he shows in lots of granular detail is that, yeah, we're nowhere near being able to actually have that kind of, even the technology to get there. So we're going to be going in these iterative states, which pretty much all new technology works that way. But so for me, when I suppose you've been on Decentraland, or these other metaverses, right, and walked around.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that exciting, really. I mean, the first couple of times you do it, maybe it's cool. You got your little avatar, and you're walking around with your mouse or your, keyboard, and you're moving through the 3D reality or whatever. Now, if you're a gamer, that's really no big deal, because you're immersed in that world a lot already. I'm not a gamer, so first few times I'm walking around in my little 3D world. I thought that was pretty cool. But, if you ever played with Second Life, or, there's some of these games before, years ago, years and years and years ago, 10 years maybe, it's not much different than that, right? It's a little bit, but not much. Now, what the blockchain and NFTs bring to this, what they're now calling the metaverse, right, is the dimension that makes it different. But if you're not really into that yet, then it probably looks and feels kind of boring. But it's this NFT aspect that I'm really excited about, because what it does is it brings ownership and utility that is unlike anything that we've had before. Because and now you can start to think of, well, what kind of businesses can be created? What kind of investments can be created? What kind of whole new infrastructures can be created, from this? And so that's really fascinating. And the fact that now we own the assets in the environment that we're walking around in. And I can't even articulate what that could be, because that can open up a lot of things, but it's just fundamentally different than anything we've done in the Web 2 world, right? Which is that we basically go on there, we give away everything, we own nothing, right? We give away our data, we own really nothing, and whatever game we're playing or environment we're in, we can only be in that environment. And if we choose to leave that, we have to get rid of or leave our digital assets or whatever that we spent a lot of time and maybe money on buying and creating. And now that all begins to change with metaverse, 3D gaming, blockchain gaming, whatever this may be. So I find it really fascinating. So what I'm trying to do, and I like to call myself a builder. I don't know what that really means. I'm not a coder. I'm not creating big, massive projects, whatever. But I do like to create, and I'm creating NFT artwork that will then be able to be displayed in a basic metaverse, whatever that is. And at the simplest level, creating basically a branded website that can show my brand in a 3D space, basically. So pretty basic stuff, not outlandish, but it's different, it's new, and I think we can easily use that with the technology that we have right now on phones and on our computers. And so that's what I'm looking into, and I'm really excited to kind of have some more time in 2023 to explore that and build and open it up. And what's cool is unlike anything that I've ever done, to build a different kind of community, different than what like maybe Facebook or YouTube, but build it in this where now we're owners, like we're partners and we're owners together. I don't think there's ever been anything really like that. So yeah, I can start a community in Facebook, but now I can start, and very simply, with not a lot of technology and not a lot of costs up front, build this community of like-minded owners in whatever, in the NFTs, in the assets, in the metaverse itself. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, what comes to mind is the way that social media is today. We have our little pages, we have our groups, and rather than having our profile, we all may have our own world, our own little metaverse, and we can have people come over to our world,
right?
And I guess see what vibe we bring, and,
totally.
And
I mean,
our own little.
That's as simple as that. I love that, and that is like available right now. And we can just like come hang out in our own little vibe. And yeah, it can be worlds, it can be spaces, it can be whatever, and that's the cool thing too. It's like, there's no real definition. I mean, people are trying to, put definitions on there to make it easy to market, like metaverse and, global community, Web3, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. It's just a space in it, that we can hang out together. But again, what's different is that potentially we can become owners together in really small ways, big ways, whatever, right? So that should be interesting. Now, I want to leave this discussion with just an interesting thought that I hadn't really thought about before. And Matthew Ball brings it up, and I'm right in the middle of part of this chapter, but he brings up a lot of like really detailed like information that I hadn't thought about, like that we're going to have to get over to really have this metaverse thing, become a reality. And so, like I said, some of the hardware challenges and just even the telecommunication network, the internet infrastructure needs to be way, way improved to get to that level. But one of the interesting things is Apple. So I don't know if you've heard, Apple charges 30% for any developer to put an app on their app store. 30% of proceeds they take. And so there was Coinbase had launched an NFT platform that they had a separate app for on the Apple Store, and they were fine to pay the 30% of whatever. I don't know how the app was making money other than you could trade NFTs back and forth, I guess. So I'm not sure Coinbase was actually even making money from it somehow, other than branding maybe. Anyways, Apple said that they wanted to put this 30% tax, if you will, on gas fees that were transaction fees. So if you were going to sell or buy an NFT or whatever, that transaction fee would have a gas fee, and they wanted 30% cut of that. And Coinbase is like, what are you talking about? No way, that's ridiculous. And I totally agree. I'm like, what?
Right.
Well, that kind of got me thinking about Apple and this sort of monopoly that they have. And it's funny because, Google has sort of the same thing, but Apple's ahead of them, has a huge market share. And what Matthew Ball was saying is that so apparently in the gaming world, Apple really has set this precedence that developers, it's hard to make money as a game developer. Now, there's the big guys that like is it like Roblox that has a lot of their games, the big games or whatever, and they've got them on consoles. They got different places, but even there, if to compete, you've got to be able to have your stuff on Apple, right? And that it makes it really hard for developers because of this 30% that Apple just doesn't budge from. And so what he's saying is that as the metaverse moves forward, Apple is really throttling development. And I wish I could remember this clear. I'm getting a little fuzzy, but it was just fascinating to me that basically that Apple, if you're going to have your metaverse, especially as we iterate from, one technology and we just get more and more closer to the full AI, or not AI, but 3D immersive technology, that we're going to go through apps basically, and that they're holding back the innovative structure of pure metaverse. And that's about as much detail as I have, but I'd encourage anyone to kind of look into that, into Apple, because I'm a big Mac fan, a big Apple fan for the most part, but it's really interesting how much of a stranglehold Apple is having on creative developers, and it appears that because of this, they're really limiting innovation. And basically, his point is that if we're ever going to get there, we got to figure out this Apple deal, And I just thought, wow, that one company could be so significant in actually an industry, whether it thrives or not. I'm like, wow. Now, I may be overemphasizing it, and if anybody has any other opinions on that, I'd be glad to hear that. As I finish the book, I might have some more details and to be able to talk about this. But it's actually a fascinating book. It's very. I thought it'd be just like this. I've read a couple different books on the metaverse. Some are pretty fluffy. It's like, yeah, this one is heavy, man. But it's interesting. So yeah.
And what was the name of that book called again?
The book is called The Metaverse and How It Will Revolutionize Everything. Matthew Ball. Yeah.
Cathy added here, Apple existing Model 2.0 cannot evolve. They are too big to change.
Yeah, and the question is, well, what is going to happen? Do they have to be squashed? Do they have to be, something I think will happen. I don't know what it's going to be, but you've got now not only just gamers that want this, but if you've got people that are in the metaverse that want to build big businesses and create this new Web3, metaverse, if Apple's not going to play, and if they're literally hindering this industry from moving forward, I don't know.
Yeah,
which is just interesting because we're all wondering, will Web3 replace Facebook, Google, and Apple? Who will be the players in the Web3? Of course, they want to be the players in Web3. But like Apeti says, I think they're just so steeped in Web 2, and that's just their reality, their mentality, and they make a lot of money by living in that paradigm. And so what's it going to take to move away from that? So we'll see. We shall see. So we're right at 3:05, so it's probably a pretty good time to wrap her up. Got any last words there?
Just for anybody who may be watching us for the first time today, thanks for being here, and thanks everybody who's here again. If you've been here before, we're here live every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. So please join us, and thanks for saying hi today. We have some chats going. I love it.
Yeah,
let's keep it coming. So thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Crypto Talk with Brianna and Scott.